I've spent 5 videos telling you what the research says about why people cheat, so it's only fair I tell you what happened to some of that research. Because a chunk of the most famous work on honesty and dishonesty, the studies that ended up in business books, on conference stages, in corporate training, in actual government policy, got audited by a handful of people who decided to check the numbers. And what came out of it has reshaped the field. Quick note before I go further, parts of this are still in active litigation with a trial scheduled for December 2026. I'm recording this in August. Everything I say here I'll attribute to whoever actually said it, and where people have denied things, I'll tell you they denied them. Start with a paper published in 2012 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, one of the most prestigious journals there is. The idea was beautiful in its simplicity. Think about any form where you have to certify the information is true. A tax form, an insurance claim, an application. You fill the whole thing out, and then at the end, you sign a line saying everything above is accurate. Which means by the time you make that promise, you've already written down whatever you were going to write. So what if you move the signature to the top? Sign it before you fill in anything. The headline result came from a field study with a car insurance company. Thousands of customers reporting their mileage, a number they have a direct financial incentive to shade down, and the ones who signed at the top reported meaningfully higher mileage, which is to say, they were more honest. This took off. It got cited hundreds of times, at least one insurer adopted it, government agencies around the world tested versions of it, it got taught to executives, it went in a best-selling book about honesty. It's the perfect intervention. Costs nothing, changes behavior, feels true. In 2020, a team of researchers tried to replicate it. It didn't hold. They tried again, at scale. Still didn't hold. To their credit, that team published the failure, including some of the original authors as co-authors on the replication attempt. Then they asked for the original insurance data. And in August 2021, 3 behavioral scientists who run a blog called Colada published an analysis of this dataset. Their conclusion was that the field data appeared to be fabricated, not sloppy, not miskeyed, generated. They laid out the evidence publicly, patterns in the numbers that don't occur in real data, duplicated records, and a giveaway in the fonts inside the file itself, suggesting rows had been added afterward by a different hand. The paper was retracted in September 2021. As reported at the time, none of the 5 authors disputed that fabrication had occurred somewhere in that dataset. Dan Ariely, who was the author who had handled the earliest known version of the file, has empathetically and consistently denied fabricating the data. He said the data came from the insurance company and that he could not reconstruct what went wrong. In 2024, he told Business Insider that Duke had completed a multi-year investigation which found the data was falsified but found no evidence he had knowingly used fake data. Duke has declined to comment on that, citing confidentiality, and as far as I can tell, no independent source has confirmed his characterization of the outcome. So the data is not in dispute. Who put it there has never been publicly established. Hold both of those. 2 years later, the same blog published a 4-part series about a different researcher, Francesca Gino, a star professor at Harvard Business School, whose work was also largely about honesty and ethical behavior. They presented evidence of what they described as data tampering across 4 separate papers. Harvard ran an internal investigation. It took about 18 months and produced a report running roughly 1,300 pages, which later became public through court filings. Harvard's investigation concluded that Gino had committed research misconduct intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly. 4 of the papers have been retracted. She was placed on unpaid leave in 2023. Gino has denied all allegations of misconduct consistently throughout. She sued Harvard and the 3 bloggers for $25 million. In September 2024, a federal judge dismissed her defamation claims against the Colada researchers entirely, a ruling widely read as protecting the ability of academics to publicly critique each other's work. Some claims against Harvard were dismissed too, but her breach of contract claim was allowed to proceed. In May 2025, Harvard revoked her tenure and ended her employment. That's reportedly the first time a Harvard professor has lost tenure since the 1940s. The case is ongoing. Harvard has since brought its own claim against her, which she also denies. Trial is scheduled for December 2026. Here's the question I find more interesting than either individual case. Why this field? And I think the honest answer is that the incentives in behavioral science were, for a long time, almost perfectly designed to reward exactly one thing: a surprising, clean, counterintuitive result that fits in a headline. A finding like, move the signature to the top and people get more honest, is worth a career. It's a TED Talk, it's a book deal, it's consulting. A finding like, we moved the signature and nothing measurable happened, is worth roughly nothing. It's hard to publish, journals didn't want it. So you've got an enormous reward for a specific kind of result and almost no reward for checking whether it's real. That's not an accusation about any individual. That's a description of a system. And now bring back video 3, because that's a structure that generates pressure, and every one of the 5 neutralizations from that episode is available to somebody under it. It's not really fabrication, I'm just cleaning the data. Nobody's hurt, the effect is real anyway. Everyone in this field does this. The reviewers are the real problem. The theory we use to explain a guy cheating in a video game is the same theory that explains this. That's either reassuring or deeply unsettling, and I genuinely can't decide which. I don't want to leave you thinking psychology is a wasteland, because that's not what this shows. What it shows is a field that got audited and is visibly correcting. Pre-registration, declaring what you're going to test before you collect data, has gone from rare to standard in a lot of places. Large multi-lab replication projects exist now and didn't 20 years ago. Data sharing is increasingly mandatory rather than a favor. Retraction happens faster. The 3 people who found this weren't a regulator or a government body. They were 3 academics with a blog who decided to check somebody's spreadsheet and then got sued for $25 million for it, and then won that part. That's not a field that's rotten. That's a field with a functioning immune system, discovered late and painfully. And it's the reason I've put a complications section in every single video in this series. Not to hedge, because this is a real effect, here's exactly where it's contested, is the only honest way to hand somebody a finding. So that's what happened when somebody finally audited the research. One left in this series, and it's the one all 6 of these have been circling without ever saying out loud. Because we've spent 6 videos on how badly we identify cheaters, how we misjudge one player, how the whole community misjudges the scale, what the ones who cross the line tell themselves, why catching them feels so good, and why our reasoning sharpens the second we're hunting a rule breaker. And not 1 second on why it actually costs you to spend every single match looking. That's in the last one.